Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, y'all. red.olaughlin here. The Wise One today welcomes Machiel Hoek. He's from Amsterdam, and he is the author of The Girl Who Changed the World. It's a #1 bestseller on family and inspirational books. We have a uniqueness today because Machiel wrote a book that could be a business book, but he wrote it in a novel format. So we're going to learn today about self-discovery, personal growth, and several other subjects of interest to a lot of people. So super excited to have Machiel join us today. Please enter the studio.
Thank you, Red. Hello, and good evening from Amsterdam, but of course, good morning or good afternoon to you.
It's literally noontime here in Houston, Texas. So kind of right on the cusp of both morning and afternoon. Mm-hmm. This is your first book, but you previously were a CPA and a CEO, and you have a lot of experience in business. You chose a business topic of personal growth, self-discovery, and created a story by which people can learn. So tell us a little bit about what happened in that CPA CEO world that kind of changed, transformed you, got a new lease on life as an author.
Well, as a child, I didn't understand the world around me, and I know the concept of keep people annoying other people, people killing people, human beings killing other human beings for being different. That I couldn't grasp that concept. And at the age of 7, I know that I thought, and I want to discover the secret of life, the world, why it is the way it is. And I thought I had to do that by just reading a lot of books and reading everything and getting it into my mind. At the same time, of course, you started going to school, high schools, and I just followed the normal path of becoming a student and entering life, in this case of CPA. My father was a CPA, so I just followed in his footsteps. And I thought, well, I can try to figure out this concept. But of course, if you start working in a big corporate, big firm, everything overwhelms you. And the only time I could really still read about these topics and try to figure out how religions work and other religions work and how spirituality works was by reading books in my holidays or in bedtime. And at a certain point, I saw a lot of confusion in the company that I worked for and I worked in. Let's say people that were only doing their work, but they were bullied by their bosses. They were stressed out. They were getting burned out. They were getting abused or sexually harassed. And I thought, what's happening here? I had the same confusion. And it took me a long time before an inner voice said to me, okay, Machiel, now is the time. You got to do something different. You got to step out of all of this rat race and all this nonsense and find the secret again for yourself. Get on this quest, do what you wanted to do as when you were a child, and find the secret of life. And if you can, write a book about it. Write a book in such a way that you can grasp that concept yourself, that you can understand what you're saying, and that you can, share it with other people. Because if you understand this, what you couldn't understand, then there might be other people who would be interested in that as well. And that took me on a quest that took 10 years of my life. Of course, not always fully dedicated to that, but I was able to unlayer this for me, the secret, so of course, a personal secret. And then I was able to transform it into a story. And I thought the only way to tell it is by really encapsulating it in a story that is easy to read with any aspect and any example, so easy to understand that it sticks into people's mind and they'll be able to apply it in their daily life if they want to apply it. So it's about quantum mechanics explained really, really in a nutshell, simply way, but in a way that it touches your heart and in a way that you think, okay, I can apply this in my life. That was my goal. And when I had, well, achieved it, so to say, I wanted to share it with the world, of course.
Something happened in 2014 when you went to Burning Man, according to my little bit of research there. So why don't we kind of start there? I think that's kind of where part of the journey kind of solidified and got clarified a little bit. So take it away.
Well, at a point in my life, I made this choice. I was saying, like, I want to go on this quest. And I had to quit everything I was working on. I was working on I had sold my firm, but I needed to wait two more years to get the money. And when this inner voice kicked in saying, you got to do this now, you cannot wait 2 more years and be financially independent and then go on an easy quest. It's got to be uncomfortable. You got to be really yearning for this, and you got to be something's got to be at stake here. You cannot be and have to be really yearning to discover what you want to do.
Must be a little bit of issue there, but it'll fix itself, I'm sure, pretty quickly. But my understanding was he went to Burning Man in 2014 there, and his life kind of transformed, and he'll be back here in just a moment, I'm sure. But his book, The Girl Who Changed the World, talks about self-discovery. It's basically talking about the power of actions and thoughts, the balance between being and doing, personal growth, and he concentrates a lot on feminine energy and to change the world, which is, The Girl Who Changed the World. The title of his book kind of cements that particular prospect. So it looks like he's just about back. Okay, we have his website, William. Okay, here he is.
Welcome back. About that. I'm not sure. Thank you.
So I was just telling people about your book. We threw up your website here for people to see. So
thank you very much.
We're at Burning Man 2014, and you're making a transition.
Making a transition, and at Burning Man, I didn't go to any festivals or any of those things at all. I just wanted to experience something that I have never experienced before. And Burning Man is about spirituality. It's about serendipity. It's about meeting people. I didn't know that. And one of the most impressive aspects of Burning Man, in my view, is that there is a big temple which is placed there every year and is being burned after, where people can express their grievance, their sorrow, the losses that they have experienced in their life. And the atmosphere there is so overwhelming. It's without any religious or spiritual context. It's just about people saying goodbye to the things and the people they loved in their life. And the energy was so big there. And for me, it was a turning point in saying, okay, I gotta change my life in such a way that I want to be able to listen to my soul. And I was 40, and I didn't become father in my life, and I had this yearning to become father. And at that point, I just took out a piece of paper and wrote a short message to Lisa, the daughter that I would never know in my life, saying, I love you, and would love to see you, but apparently that's not the way it goes. And then just by lightning, I got an answer. And I just got in, and it sounds strange, of course, but I got in touch with this little soul, and it was like a soul around me saying, you got to continue, do what you do, or change things, and I will come into your life. And I thought, okay, I got to change even more. So I changed my whole life upside down, 180 degrees, sold everything that I had, ended my relationship of 24 years, and just had to be really in a void, on a 0 point, to not knowing where I was. I was back in the attic with my parents, and I thought, what now? And I know that a lot of people experience that at some point in their life, that they are at the void and saying, what now? What should I do? Where do I go? And that's a miracle. That's a wonderful point to be in, but only you know it. That's a wonderful point to be in afterwards, because when you're in it, it sounds like, and it feels like you're not going where you're not knowing where you're going, and it seems pointless or without any purpose or goal. And for me, it was able to start writing the book, because I had been writing a lot and nothing really came out of my hands. So I was able to follow my heart and my soul. And in the end, I was able to find my new love, and we were able to give birth to our, let's say, both wish to bring the soul to life, which is my baby boy now. He's 4 years old. But the girl that I had mentioned, I had named her Lisa, was still also in my vision, in my energy, and I decided that she should be the protagonist in my book, because it should be her that I would like to explain the secret of life once I had discovered it myself.
So self-discovery is part of the book, The Girl Who Changed the World.
Yes.
And is that the inspiration for you writing the book?
The inspiration for me was I wanted to be able to explain something that I didn't know myself at that point. And the only way to do that for me was to go out into the woods in a cabin or whatever, get all my systems down, shut off, just be there, and then things would just flow in, inspiration. But even I wrote chapters that I didn't even foresee or didn't plan to write. So it was more like inspiration coming in. I had a Q&A with my grandfather, who was deceased for 20 years already. And I just had a Q&A on paper with him. He for my 7th birthday, he gave me a painting with 7 hidden secrets in it. And this was 40 years later almost, I was able to ask him, what were those secrets? He said, okay, find out for your own. And I was able to find out what those secrets were. So for me, that the inspiration was out of my head, into my body, into my heart and soul, and just be open for what would come. And that it would be a girl to change the world would be typical, because what I also found out in that process is that it is about feminine energy, feminine leadership, women that would need to change the world, because men and masculine energy has been too dominant and too much present in the last millennia in our world, so out of balance. But we'll come back to that.
Okay, you talk about the power of thoughts and actions. Why don't you give us a little bit of an example of what specifically you mean by that?
The concept is also in quantum mechanics, but also other physical studies, is that everything is energy, everything is vibration. So I mean, even the dead, and you know that, of course, even the deadest substance vibrates because the atoms vibrate. So everything is connected and reacting with each other. So the power of understanding that first, but second, feeling that by knowing that our senses just perceive the frequency, perceive the vibrations that are there. If you smell something, it's vibration. If you hear, it's vibration. If you touch something, it's vibration. To understand that and then to apply it in a way that you say, okay, the world seems to come to me through my senses. But what if the world doesn't come to me, but if the world is a reflection, actually an outing of me, where my senses actually are projecting it into the world? What would be the case then? So it's not going from the outside in, but it's from the inside out. What happens then? And in this story, it's described in such a way that you can easily understand. This story about Elisa, a 13-year-old girl, and she's being explained by her grandfather what the secret of life could be about. He's not giving her the answers, he's letting her find her out herself. What would happen if you can really grasp the concept of the world being a reflection of you, a mirror of you? What would happen then? And 2 things happen then. You can say, okay, if that is the case, I am the cause of it all, because if what I radiate changes, then the world around me changes. And if you can start with very simple steps and understand how that works and really experience how that works, you say, okay, then you might step up to next levels and see what happens then. So it gives you endless and infinite possibilities, but also responsibility, because then you cannot blame anything or anyone. You are responsible for what happens in your world. And that's easy to say. It's harder to grasp that. And it's, of course, the hardest to tell that to anyone else. Because how would you explain this concept to someone who's been abused or has been born or hurt in a war zone? Or there's so many people who have pain and suffered in their lives, and especially in today's world. How can you explain this concept to them? So it's important to grasp it yourself and then master it.
Okay, so we go from the power of thoughts and actions into a balance between being and doing. So
Yes.
take that on as the next transition for how we're describing your book to a potential reader.
Mm-hmm. That is a wonderful way to do that, indeed. The way is that if I start with the end is about an actual outing of feminine energy and feminine leadership in action. This 13-year-old girl knows that her grandfather is keeping a secret, and he's not walking his talk. He is wise, but he's not practicing what he preaches. So at some point she stands up to him and say, if you don't want to face this and get through this, then I don't want you to be my grandfather anymore. And that for him is so hurtful that he is able to get into his own pain and get to terms with his own pain and fears from the past. But this calling upon, let's say, feminine energy, this girl who really changes her world and also her grandfather's world and the world of a lot of people around her at the same time, this girl is doing that by using her feminine qualities, her feminine intuition. So she goes out of her head and she goes into different levels of wisdom and energy. And what I would like to do with this book is to call upon women, feminine energy, so to say, but it's easy to say women, to step up and do the same against the masculine energy that has been dominating our world for too long, because the masculine energy has taken control by just pure power and force, but it's gone out of balance. And we see that in our world everywhere. And the only way to bring that balance back is having the feminine energy in the rightful same position as the masculine energy. And it's not by complying to today's rules, which have been defined by man and by masculine energy, but to rewrite the rules. We need to reset the system. And this is a calling upon that. And I'll dive into that later on. I have some few questions about that as well, because I don't have all the answers. I just see what is necessary here. But the book describes the way how anyone can change that world and that worldview for his or herself, and to be able to understand that if I'm looking at you, I'm actually looking at myself. And if you're looking at me, you're looking at yourself. We're having this conversation, each also with our own. The whole world is a reflection of your inner state of being and your inner state of emotions. And if you can take one small step into that direction, the next steps follow easily. And then you come to terms of say, okay, the world is really my mirror. And then that becomes both spooky as well as magical. And then you're able to change your world, but also the world.
Okay, Machiel, you're talking about a novel of change and transformation, and then the book is really for personal growth for people who want to know, but it's also a business book too, because it's the dynamic of change in a personal and in a group setting, of which I know it's very important to you based on your prior experience working. So if you had to summarize the ideal audience for your book, who would that be?
Any author would like his or her book to be for as broad an audience as possible. And I know I've got feedback from 7-year-olds being read this book or having read this book, 8-year-olds who loved it, and also grandparents of 90 who are also touched by it. But it is actually for people who are open to the concept of changing the way they look at life, or that they actually yearn for a change in the world or in their own life, but they don't know how or where. And I'm Dutch, and being Dutch means we're also trying to always be a bit modest. So I have to sometimes step over that concept of keeping myself down, because that's our culture here. But this book really combines the concepts of quantum mechanics, spirituality, brings them all together in a very simple and nice story. And that's why it's easy to read, but it has several layers. It's not shallow. There are several layers in, so you can go as deep as you like or as you want. But this book is for people either in business, either people working at companies, or people just trying to change something in the world, because what they see out in the world is something they don't like, because there's too much violence, there's too much threat, there's too much uncertainty, there's climate change, there's uncertainty and threat on so many levels in these days. And the way that is being brought to us is in such a polarized way. It's black and white thinking. It's, are you either with me or against me? It's right or wrong. And the whole nuance and the midfield has disappeared. And what I hear from a lot of Americans is that they say this has changed, especially in the last 20 years, where in the past we were able to find each other, but now it's like you're either one team or the other, and one has to win, the other has to lose, and we cannot win together. And the only way to get to a higher level and to a better world is if we win together and not exclude any person, any group, anyone.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey as an author. You decided you had to write this book it's coming from your heart. Bring me through the process. Okay, you have your vision. This is what you want to get to your audience. And then you sit down and you start typing. What happened to transition you into an author, and that what made you continue writing chapter after chapter?
Again, this change I found when I was able to put all systems down. I first started, of course, business wise. I had hired an office to write not just an office, and I wanted to write the book within 1 year. So I planned it. I said, this is how to research. This is when I write, and end of the year I'll have a book ready. So it was a canal dug from A to B, and that was in a business way managed. That I would be able to finish it end of year and have it published next year. And of course, after 3 months, nothing had come out of my pen or on my keyboard, and the canal had become a meandering river going everywhere instead of going to be where I wanted it to go. So the message of life was surrender to the stream of life. Just get out of the planning and just get into experiencing and just see what happens. And by making that shift, because I was able then to let go because this didn't work, then things would start to flow. And then things would start to flow, in my case, non-rationally and non-linear. When I started writing when I was on a vision quest. So then you're 5, 6 days out in nature without any food, any shelter, just you, yourself, some water and a booklet. So I started writing the start of the book. But the next time I was out in nature, I started writing the end of the book, and I started writing differently. So it was from A to Z, back and forth. There was no structure, no logic. And the only way I could deal with that was just surrender and stay out of my head, because otherwise I would start to think rationally and say, oh, yeah, I have to do planning. This has got to be the plot, and this is how it sticks in together. I had to just trust that journey and trust whatever came into me, and had to get out of the way to get my mind and ratio out of the way. And the more I was able to do that, the better it worked. So that was what kept me writing and writing and writing, because there was this passion. I even wanted to say, where's this going to? I was just even curious how the story would end. I didn't invent it myself.
Okay, so you needed to get out of your head, and one of the things that my research, it says, and I have a client that I'm helping also. He started writing his book in English, and then he found out when he got 2/3 of the way through, he could actually write better in German. And so he took everything. Now you did the same thing. You started writing the book in English, and then you switched over to Dutch. Why did you make that decision? Now, there had to be something that said there must be an easier way or something.
I started in English because also I had the idea of this has to be a New York Times bestseller, because it's so important that it's got to be read by so many people. So I have to start big, and I have to start in English. And of course, it's not my native language. It's not my mother tongue. So I discovered that even when I thought I was writing it in a very correct way, the message would not really come over. So I had it read by 3 native speaking Americans, and they all said, yeah, we understand it's nice, but it doesn't touch the point. So please, and I was halfway, throw it away, start in Dutch again. And it was like, I'm halfway the painting. I don't want to do this all over again. But they were so persistent that, okay, well, I have to do it first in my own mother tongue, and not to just translate it again, but just start all over again. And it was very annoying at that point, but I know that was the only solution. Like you said, the person had to write it in his own mother tongue in German, apparently. And then I was able to, when it was finished, to get it published, of course, here in the Netherlands at first. And the feedback I got from people, because at first no one wanted to publish it. So it was COVID time, and I decided I'm going to have 2,000 copies printed, and I'll spread them around in my neighborhood, just give them to people. Like, this is the Burning Man spirit of gifting, with a small note saying, I got to gift you this book, and I hope you like it. And the feedback on that was so enormous that I thought, okay, there's something worthwhile in this book. This is really worthwhile pursuing. So I finally found a publisher. I had it published in the Netherlands, and it became a bestseller at some point. And that was really, for me, the kick point to say, okay, we got to bring it to America now, because America is such an important country in the world, and there's so much things going on in that country from our point of view, from a European point of view, that might need some soothing and need some bringing back to the connection again, instead of this polarization. So that's when, for me, the mission started. I got to bring it to America, have it translated, and then get it to American readers.
Okay, so most of us, when we write our book, we are always delayed in marketing our book. We should be starting both at the same time. And it's very, very common. You write the book, you get it published, and then you tell the world, hey, I'm an author. But in your particular case, you have an extra added gate you have to go through because you're over there writing the book in Dutch. It's becoming circulated around your local neighborhood, so to speak. But your main purpose is to get it into the English world, which, as you say, that's the bigger audience that can use your book. So I can see a lot of dilemmas with regard to marketing your book, keeping the, I mean, just I'm sure your mind must have been going like this, trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
So tell me about the marketing. How did you become successful marketing this book?
Well, I think that's also what most authors go through, and especially if you're new to it, that you're so enthusiastic about your book, you say, the world's got to read it. And in fact, no one cares. When I had it published in the Netherlands, I wrote to 100 journalists who are just reviewing books in a large local or nationwide newspapers, and no one responded. And I thought, well, you got this. This is interesting. You got to find this interesting. But of course, I mean, no one knows me, and of course, there's hundreds of books appearing every day. So why would this be interesting? So for me, I did a lot of what every author does by marketing my book, but none of it worked. So then I thought, okay, I have a mission with this, and I'm ready to invest in that, not for financial return, but for the return of spreading this book. So I had placed in the national newspapers, big adverts in the Saturday editions. They were really big investments, but then it started rolling because we, hey, this is an interesting book. And then we got some volume, and then people said it was so interesting that they recommended it to everyone else. People bought it as a Christmas gift for their family or in their businesses. And then things started rolling. And the funny thing is, no national newspaper, magazine, or whatever has paid any attention to it at all until today. So it became a bestseller by word to mouth, and people telling about it each other, and just like that. And so I had to do a lot of marketing first, but then it happened by itself. And then I thought, if I want to bring it to America, I got to do the same thing. I got to find a publisher. I got to approach agents, and of course, like a lot of people do, I approached 500 agents, and a few reacted, wanted to have the manuscript, but at some point, no one wanted to continue this any further. And then I remembered the story of James Redfield, the author of the Celestine Prophecy, who in the 90s wrote it, had written this book, and no one wanted to publish it. And he thought this is a very important book for this moment in time for the world. So he printed 2,000 or 3,000 copies of his book and put them in the trunk of his car and drove around America and offered it to readers and bookstores. And that's how it became picked up and became the bestseller, the best-selling spiritual book of the 90s. So I thought I'll do the same. I have 2,000 books printed and last year, and have shipped to Los Angeles and started spreading them around in Los Angeles and San Francisco and at Burning Man. But at Los Angeles, no one wants to take your book on the streets because they're afraid you're going to ask money for it or whatever. So it didn't work. And then I saw a lot of homeless people on the streets, and I thought this could be win-win. So I gave homeless people boxes of my books, saying you can give them away or sell them or give them away and you get some money. So it was spread around the local Los Angeles streets by the homeless network. And then I drove further to San Francisco, and I saw a lot of lanes with houses and these typical American mailboxes. And I thought, just drop in a book in every mailbox with a small note to it, and that will be spreading around nicely as well. And whilst I was doing that the first time, I was stopped by a siren in the back of me, and a sheriff coming out saying, "Sir, you're committing a federal crime. You're being detained." So I was arrested for giving away books. For the fact that I shouldn't touch the American mailboxes. And my defense, I'm Dutch, I didn't know, in the end worked, so I was freed again. But it was a nice way of getting to know the differences between how America works, how Europe works, in all these details, interactions.
Whoa, that's such an interesting story. As an author, your cover is the thing that attracts people. So tell us a little bit about your cover design. How did you go about deciding that's what I wanted on the cover, and that ended up that way?
Well, this book is a product from my heart, together with my wife. And you see our little son here. When we met, I told her about the fact that I want to write this book and that I had seen this vision of Lisa, my daughter, and she said, "Okay, we're going to make her together." My wife is, of course, my biggest fan, but she's very critical. So when I had the manuscript, I finished it, and she read it. She said, "Hey, this is why I married you," and that was a very warm feeling to hear, because I know when I write something that she doesn't like, she will tell me straight away. She's the most critical person as well. And she's a graphic designer, so I thought I'll ask her to design the cover, and she wanted to do that, of course, because it's actually something of the two of us together. And it became very clear she just designed it also in a kind of in a state of getting out of the mind and just letting it be. And once it was ready, for me, there was so much magic into it. It's quite simple, but for instance, this shooting star, which is discussed in the book, it shoots here, but it's also or it could be the sperm fertilizing the egg. There is all of these layers. It's a simple and I think very nice cover, but there's so much symbolism in there, which relates to our story, which relates to the book, which relates to the story and the underlying elements, that it was just one fit. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. This is her and my energy coming together in a book that's both and which we want to bring to the world.
Is there a small
And
section in there
I have
you like?
designs. Sorry, go ahead.
Is there a small section there you'd like to read before we get to the end of today's show?
There's a lot of things I like, of course, but one element that I like is that in the end, the grandfather is confronted by his granddaughter about his secret that he's carrying around. And the secret is what a lot of people carrying around in our world is ancient pain, pain from our ancestors, pain that's being passed along for generations and that's being held there, and that's hurting so much, but it's not only your own pain. So at some point, the grandfather is in his living room at night, and he at some points gets in touch with his pain, talks to it. And the morning after, he explains to his granddaughter how that worked, what happened. So at some point he says, "Well, I talked with my pain. We had a dialogue." And then Lisa displayed no surprise, and she talked to a couple of spiders after all herself. "So what did it say, Grandpa? What did it tell you?" And Grandpa took a deep breath and relaxed slightly. Speaking with less fervor, he continued, "The pain informed me that it was much older than myself. It had existed within me from the moment I was born. And back then, it wasn't my pain. It belonged to my parents. It was a fusion of their pain, passed down on me. That's how it works," the pain explained. "I am passed down from parents to their children, from grandparents to their grandchildren, traversing an ancestral lines for generations." And then Grandpa says, "It revealed to me that it is as ancient as humanity itself, as old as the first humans on Earth. And I ask it, if you weren't my pain before, when did you become my pain? And what exactly are you, to have always existed and caused such suffering in people?" And he said, "Well, then something peculiar occurred." The pain responded, "What do you think?" It posed a question to me. Lisa's demeanor remained undisturbed, as though this were the most natural conversation. "Then what happened, Grandpa?" "Well, I wasn't particularly astonished by the pain asking me a question. It felt as though you were engaged in a regular conversation with someone. So I replied to the pain, I believe that you are what I've painted. You represent everything that eludes human perception, the invisible aspects of our existence. As we navigate the course of life, we remain uncertain, unaware of our destination, unsure if we'll succeed or stumble, uncertain when or how our lives will end. We don't know if we'll lose loved ones, experience hurt, or make mistakes along this journey. You embody our insecurity. You are our fear. We become so deeply attached to life and our loved ones that we fear losing everything. Consequently, we grow even more attached to them, intensifying our fears. Fear hurts. Leaving loved one hurts. But my parents couldn't love me unconditionally because they hadn't learned to love themselves. They were burdened by too much pain, pain that had been passed down to them by their parents. Then they struggled through life to making a living, to gain status, to earn the respect of others. And deep down, all they yearned for was unconditional love, though they were very insecure of this, very unaware of this truth. And so they couldn't fully love me, and that hurts. Thus, the pain within in me, that's you, that grew. I didn't want that. I found you annoying pain, and so I hid you away. Nobody likes pain. The pain responded with me to me with sadness. And I said to the pain, that must be incredibly lonely. That must hurt. And then the pain said, it's the first time someone has spoken so kindly to me. And then I said, come here, come to me. And I beckoned to the pain, opened my arms, and we hugged, and we hugged, and we understood each other.
As we're almost to the end of the show, Machiel, the aspect of self-discovery, personal growth, what is one or two takeaways, real important takeaways from your book for the reader?
I think the point is, it's never too late to change your life to the better, to the dream that you always wanted it to be. The outside world can sometimes seem hostile, can seem unchangeable, but anyone can change it. It only takes one to change it, and there's no reason that it can't be you. And together we can make this planet of mankind and turn it into the planet of kind man. And I think that's what our purpose should be.
Okay, so how can people get your book? How can they get in touch with you? Let's take a minute and let you tell the world about you and your book.
Well, thank you very much. The book is currently on Amazon, available in ebook and in hard copy. It's really so easy to get there. I have my contact details in the book because I wanted people to communicate with me if they like. So everything is in there, but my website, my first and last name, machielhoek.com. You can find my contact details on there, and with the same Machiel Hoek, first name, last name, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and any channel, any social media. So it's easy to contact me, and I will respond to people one-on-one because I value every feedback that I get, and it's sometimes really chilling or goosebumps that I get from the experience that people share with me, and I love that. And I have the ambition, of course, to reach a large publicum, to reach a lot of readers, but having changed one person's life so immensely, so tremendously, was already such a reward in itself. And I thought, if you change one life, you change the world. So in the end, it doesn't matter. But of course, there's an aspect in me that wants to reach a lot of America and be able to be part of the change we get to a world which is more in balance, where men and women are, and every group of people is treated fully equally, and where we will have peace and prosperity for the millennia to come.
For our audio audience, and for just making it a little bit easier, Machiel Hoek is MachielHoek.com. I'll repeat that. It's MachielHoek.com. And so Machiel.hoek@gmail.com is probably one of your preferred ways of getting in touch with them.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to say, Machiel, I really enjoyed our talk today. Thank you so very much for joining us from Amsterdam. And I look forward to bumping into you down the road virtually. I'm sure it's going to happen. So again,
well, thank you so much, Red. It was really lovely to be enjoying, and really I admire and appreciate so much what you do with this channel, bringing these messages out in the world, and you're changing the world, and that's for the better, and that's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Machiel Hoek, and The Girl Who Changed the World is his book, novel, and ironically also a business book. So with that, we're going to conclude The Wise Ones today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I have about a little over 20 minutes, not much, but just a couple, that we're going to start my next show called Talking Heads. And this is a show where I primarily address the issues of health and wellness. I research the human body at the cellular level. Chemically speaking, I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem, treat symptoms, and you'll always treat symptoms. So we're starting a new topic, and I figure since 2025 is literally about 90 days away, a little more than that why not get ourselves mentally prepared, start establishing some habits at the end of this year that we don't have to worry about New Year's resolutions, that whatever we start doing, we can continue on into January, February, and March as if that's just part of our normal lifestyle. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, trying to get that mindset created so that we can start our change for 2025 today. And that's the topic. And please join me if you can, Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. With that, this is Red.Olaughlin signing off of the wise ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and see you all next week. Take care. Bye now.
5 Little Known Secrets for Dementia Caregivers with Tracy Cram-Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram-Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us. So it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take us long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder, for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram-Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents our partner and sponsor, Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. Building confidence, changing lives. And now, proudly presenting the Polished Professional.
On a transformative journey with the British School of Excellence's comprehensive suite of masterclasses, crafted to elevate your professional and personal life. 8 outstanding modules will elevate you to the next level. Module 1, Exploring Life's Purpose, delves into the depths of self-discovery, guiding you to chart your unique path to fulfillment and success. Module 2, Mastering Professional Presence and Confidence. This masterclass is a deep dive into the art of self-assurance and commanding presence, which is essential for standing out in today's competitive landscape. Module 3, Learn the Secrets of Visual Impact, how to curate a personal style that amplifies your professional brand. Module 4, Mastering Professional Etiquette and Communication Excellence, navigating the nuances of corporate interaction with grace and tact. Module 5, elegance in eloquence. We impart powerful techniques to captivate and persuade any audience with your oratory skills. Module 6, unlock the potential of your emotional intelligence, EQ, and harness the ability to connect, empathize, and lead with emotional savvy. Module 7, mastering DISC, building a gateway to understanding behavioral styles, fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, mastery in dining etiquette, building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance, and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you.